welcome.
Hello, hello, hello.
Woo!
How's that Friday going? Are you sharing this playlist afterward?
Yes, I can put in the chat. This is a collaborative playlist
Oh,
done for this event
oh my
specifically.
God.
So yeah, so Luxury Abril created it for us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you have it in the chat. So if you're also enjoying the music,
Yeah,
you could download the playlist. That's awesome. Thank you.
yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, let's begin. Thanks everyone for joining. I know that some of you already heard me say this introduction 1,000 times. I apologize for that. But for those of you who are joining for the first time, I just wanted to thank you very much for being here. This session is called Feminist Future of Food Systems, and Estefania and all her guests will be talking to us with us at a very short time. So this session is part of a larger event called Women Who Futures, which is organized by me in Abril. And our idea of organizing this event was really to create safe spaces for us to exchange, to promote, and to celebrate the work of women in futures and foresight. And we have here a diversity of speakers because we really wanted to show diversity of approaches that women are taking their work in the field, reflecting on women's identities and how much our identity inform our practice, and then finding new ways to articulate feminism and gender issues in futures and foresight. So we have an amazing lineup of speakers. Please look at the program and sign up for more sessions. And when you join us here, you agree with your code of conduct. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. We have a zero tolerance policy on any form of discrimination and harassment, and we're gonna be very respectful on each other's opinions. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to Estefania and her guests. Over to you, Steph. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much to Thais and Prado and Abril Chimal from Portugal, Brazil, and Mexico who have created this space to exchange about a topic that seems both obvious and hairy at times. So let's see how we dive in. We're super excited to have our guest speakers here. So good morning, afternoon, evening, and welcome everyone to our webinar on feminist future food systems. I am Stefania Simon Sasik, the founder of Mycelium, a global food innovation consultancy that creates local positive impact by harnessing the collective intelligence of global talent. I'm also an award-winning futures practitioner, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. We're thrilled to have you join us as we delve into the critical intersections of gender, food systems, and societal change. In the realm of food system and broader societal impact, it's widely acknowledged that women play a pivotal role as multipliers and key stakeholders. However, what does it truly mean to embrace a feminist approach within our food systems? This hasn't been defined yet. And it's a central question that our esteemed panelists will explore today with data, but also imagination. Before we dive into our discussion, allow me to introduce our panelists. We have with us today a dynamic lineup of speakers representing various sectors within the food industry, academia, advocacy, and community organizing. Each bring a unique perspective and wealth of experience to our conversation. First, Veronica Escobar is an expert in human development projects, sustainability, corporate social responsibility, youth, and sports for development. She has held leadership positions in nonprofit organizations for 20 years, participating in boards of national and global networks. She's currently vice president of the board of CERES, the Ecuadorian Corporation for Corporate Social Responsibility, where she excels in leadership, innovation, social investment projects, and generation of alliances. She's the co-founder and current executive president of the Foundation of the Americas for Development, FUDELA, an Ecuadorian NGO with 19 years of experience that works on the social and economic inclusion of different groups in vulnerable situations. Welcome, Veronica. Dr. Ratanapu Norbert-Muntz, hello, is a Sustainable Development and Agri-Food Systems Policy Expert at the Office of Sustainable Development Goals at Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, of the United Nations. She's an award-winning futurist and an experienced researcher and practitioner on climate change, agriculture, and food security, currently based in Southeast Asia. She has an extensive experience in design, implementation, capacity building, and analysis within the practice of foresight planning for sustainable, resilient, and low emission food systems. She has actively contributed over the last 10 years to the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture, and food security as a regional scenarios coordinator in South and Southeast Asia, and has supported climate foresight guided agri-food system related policies formulation in Cambodia and Lao PDR. He also serves as a policy researcher at Utrecht University with the Copernicus Institute, and prior to 2017 with Oxford University and the Environmental Change Institute. She sits on different board of directors, including Transparency International Cambodia, and is a fellow of the Brussels Institute for Advanced Studies. In 2023, she became the new member of the steering committee of the Foresight for Food hosted at Oxford University. Welcome, Ratana. Next, we have Jennifer Marcilia Pastrana, founder of Sabores y Saberes Corporation in Colombia, psychologist by training, and apprentice matrona. For those who don't speak English, the knowledge bearer by vocation. Since 2008, she has been working for the recognition of traditional cooks and safeguarding of culinary traditions, developing programs such as Red Matron, Sabores y Saberes Traditional Cooking and Heritage Program, the annual Retorno al Fogón exhibitions in the Department of Atlántico in Colombian Caribbean region. She has participated as a researcher in the construction of special safeguarding plans and inventories of knowledge associated with traditional cuisine. She is recognized as an activist for traditional cuisine, currently a candidate for a doctorate in social sciences at the Universidad del Norte in Barranquilla, Colombia. Welcome, Jennifer. And last but not least, Constanza Diaz del Castillo Velázquez. She's a designer, master in gastronomic sciences, and a PhD candidate in sociology. She's also a professor researcher at the Basque Culinary Center. Constanza was born in Venezuela and is now based in Spain. She understands design as a set of tools for exploring and intervening in specific situations. She approaches research, consulting, and teaching from a participatory perspective, working with multiple agents to share objectives to achieve transdisciplinary results. From a systemic view of gastronomy, she can formulate context-specific projects for social development. She has worked in social innovation projects in Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Spain, focusing on gastronomy as a tool for development. Welcome, Constanza, and welcome on all. I'm humbled just by reading those introductions. So together, they will guide us through thought-provoking discussions on women's empowerment in agriculture, access to land and resources, fair labor practices, food sovereignty, and the cultural significance of food. By centering women's voices and experiences, we aim to envision what a feminist food system looks like and how it can drive positive change across various domains. From grassroots movements to policy initiatives, the contribution of women are integral to building more inclusive, just, and resilient food systems that benefit all the individuals and communities. I would also like to share a disclaimer. The views expressed here are solely those of the individuals representing them and not necessarily reflect the views of any organization, institution, or entity with which they may be affiliated. This discussion will take about 45 minutes and will conclude with a Q&A section of about 20. And well, without further ado, let's dive into our discussion and explore the transformative potential of a feminist food system. So what is it? We came up with the title and then we said, no one has tried to define this before. So let's have a first dab at this. What does it mean to embrace the feminist approach within food systems? Maybe we could start with Dr. Ratana.
Thank you, and thank you again for inviting me. I mean, I'm humble as well, like to see all of the different speakers here, and congratulations to have all of those participants online. As you just rightly said, it is one thing to ask the questions, but being able to respond to it's another. I think I will not have a full response to that, and to be honest, I don't think there is any as such feminist food system that ever exists. I know it's provocative, but we will not be where we are right now. And talking about feminism in 2023 and looking for the next 160 years, maybe, before having any kind of gender parity coming up, if the situation before us was not already very worrying. So I think that when we are looking at feminism, we are looking at a principle that unfortunately didn't have been applied very well, not enough, not at scale. And I'm not going to give a very rosy scenario here, but I think it's very important to think that when we bring feminism, we bring the idea and the principle of diversity. We bring the principle of leaving no one behind. It doesn't mean that we have to be just between women, It's about who right now and who in the past didn't have been a part of the voice and around the table, the decision maker around the food system transformation that happened currently. So that's all for now. I'm looking at what the other speaker will put as well.
Thank you. Jennifer, what's your take on a feminist food system?
Well, for me, it means embracing care, not as a weakness. I feel in some cases, care, we just think about, hey, with the midwife and all the things about family. But I feel that this is the power to ensure justice and truly equitable access to research. If we don't think the feminist about care and just think about power or maybe men's roles that we have to take for us, we just forget that the care is the base of everything. So I think that thinking in feminist future is embrace care. That's a power.
Very powerful answer, Jennifer. Wasn't expecting less from you when defining this. Constanza, how about you? What do you think is this invention of a feminist food system, this provocation of today?
Yeah, I totally agree with Jennifer and Ratana. I will add to this perspective the context, the importance of the context, because we talk about the food system, but I think we could talk about multiple food systems, understanding the diversity of issues that happen in every point of this network of relations. But also, from my research and going back to this diversity that is not only women, I like to talk about queerness, about a queer perspective, and I think that's something that I'm going to bring to the conversation in different times, because what I've come to realize is that in the food system, we participate with people, but also with other ways of being. We participate with nature, we participate with technology. So these caring and ways of relating with respect, we need to also figure out how to do it with our environment, with other ways of being, with other types of knowledge, and like embracing these other perspectives that bring not only humans, because we focus on a very human perspective, but also understanding how we can learn from others, microorganisms, technologies, plants, and the way they relate. So I think it's about this opening this complexity and really learning from these different perspectives.
Thank you, Constanza. So multi-species has entered the room. Thank you for that. And maybe the closing remarks of this first provocation, Veronica.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. It's a great to be here. Already all the panelists have different concepts and reflections, but just to add, for us and for me, to adopt a feminist approach within the food system implies a deep understanding of the different people that are involved, not only to think the producers as the women, but also to think on the other actors and stakeholders as the private sector, for example, just to add and to provoke. Also, I think that it's very important to understand that we have this means that we need to have an integral or an holistic approach. I mean, we cannot think in a human or in a feminist approach without thinking the families, the men, the other actors. So the respect, and how can we close the gaps? Because I think that all of us, or the most of us, are trying to closing gaps. But in order to closing these gaps for women and for this approach, we need to understand what are the cultural system, what are the context in each of the different areas. So it's not an easy answer, but it provoked us to think a different position. So that's my first input. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you. Okay, so we have already started mentioning the legacy and the hard task we have in front of us. Ratana mentioned this horrific number, 160 years, to be able to close this gap that Veronica says is really the task at hand when we're thinking about feminist food systems. But we also talked about some values that seem to be key, which is care, multiplicity, contextuality, holistic approach. And I like what I'm seeing about this feminist food system so far. So diving a little bit into more of detail and kind of letting futurists that are in the room understand how complex the field that we work in is, I wanted to touch upon how gender dynamics influence food production, distribution, consumption, so the different touch points, or some of the touch points of the food system. So I'm going to put you again in the spot first, Ratana. How does gender influence the food system?
How it's influenced and not influence. I think that this is where it's kind of very tricky. If you look at the big picture, a woman is about 49% of the total population in the world. When you think about who produce the food, generally we will say that 50% of the food globally produced is by women. But in developing countries, in Asia and Pacific, for example, that can go up to 60 to 80% of the food being produced that are being produced by women. Meanwhile, we don't have the same access to land. We don't have the same access to policy formulation. What Veronica put as closing the gap, we're far from being closing those gaps. So when we're talking about the dynamic, there is a lot of dynamic that is about pushing towards a certain future, but there's a dynamic as well that is actually pulling us down towards what is the future ambitions that we have. And I think that when we think about dynamics, we have to think about those that are actually limiting us, pushing us away, and those that are actually allowing us to accelerate. There are positive trends, there are dynamics where we can see that women producers are having more access to bank, to financial entity, that there is a better awareness surrounding those issues. But then when we think about another food system outcome, for example, nutrition, we see that in terms of malnutrition, in terms of sensitivity related to food security, women and children are still be the first one as being the most vulnerable one. So again, it is very important to bring that aspect of the dynamic, but it's very important, as my other colleague in the call already highlighted, to highlight the system where those have been created. And I stopped here.
Yes. That no, it's a very balanced view, and thank you for that. I mean, and we even could see it in some food rituals, why it comes out that the women eat less. There was someone, we were in a conference, where I met Jennifer last year, called Para Vere Forum, very much recommended to any woman that is in the food space. And there was a chef recalling that actually all the Indian flatbreads are done at the moment. And who is doing it is the one eating last. So as you were saying, it's good to understand the system and cultural dynamics underlying this very big kind of broad stroke. Nutrition and food security hits women worth. It's because there are some systems and rituals that kind of perpetrate this. And this is just a very small example, but I love the way that you have read it, Ratna, and thank you for that. And maybe to have another vision from Jennifer, please. What do you think are the dynamics of gender with food production, consumption, distribution?
Well, agriculture, the production of utensils, the production of preparation has always involved the practice of women, men, children, elders. Ultimately, the reality exceeds the concept of categories from which seek explain them. Food dynamics have historically had different processes according to who does the work. However, if that work has been always collective in family, so I have to say the last reflection about the contest, about which food system we are talking about. In families, we produce food, even if we don't have land to have products. So if we go beyond the narrative of the capacity of men or women, we have the opportunity to know the ways in which community guarantee their foods. We find ourselves with central family tasks, which everyone has responsibility, everyone has expertise, and everyone has commitment, even children. So the gender is accommodating, maybe, is something that cross around all the food systems. Not if we talk about food, we always talk in global dynamics, but in local dynamics, the situation is different. The situation is not just about access or about equality sources. It's about who makes what for whom, and always is for a collective, is for a behavior that translate the care in a more big reality. Not as individual, it's more like a family and a community process.
Right. And I think that relates to the first part you were talking about, care and holistic approaches. There is good and bad, of course, and I want to highlight that everyone in this panel is coming from the global south, and sometimes we can see how the academic framework sometimes clash with some realities that we see, especially from societies that are more collectivist versus societies that are more individualistic. But there are things to thread, and of course, big numbers like Dr. Ratana was referring to are actually reflecting realities all over the world. So I think there is some equilibrium to be made between what we see with our eyes qualitatively, this collective feeling, and then big stats and numbers that reveal maybe some perverse dynamics between this sense of collectiveness. Just to poke a little bit, and I am not a gender expert, I'm getting a bit red, but we are in a safe space. So if we're not going to talk about this now, when? So, bueno, thank you for that. And thank you for the patience in my threading comments. I am getting a bit red, but we can do this. We will get through it. The next one is, of course, I wanted to highlight successful initiatives in promoting gender equality in food systems. So Veronica has been working a lot in the impact sector for many years, and I would like to hear some of your experiences in successful case studies in this regard, please.
Thank you. Okay, it's as Constanza said, or sorry, as Jennifer said, maybe gender, it becomes like a commodine, but for us to work with a gender basis is like an transversal axis of all the projects that we make. But that means that not only we have to think about the number of participants that are women, that in some cases when you implement a project, when you said I have like a gender basis, you just count the number of women. For us, is really how to empower them, how we can work in order to empower. We as Fudela, we have like different projects, but I want to share two of them. One is called Flavors with Purpose, that we are going to implement soon with the with Masilum also. You are going to be our partner, and what we want to do is like we want to train youth, men and women from different areas of Ecuador, to have like their to improve their entrepreneurships with a different level. But what we do to empower women, we think that the human development is an important key on their training. What that means is that we train on a social, emotional abilities. We train them in how to react when they are angry, how to react, and how to identify their emotions. That is like a very example, a little example of how we do. So we don't work, or we don't train only a technical basis. We train them on soft skills, on resilience, on how to empower, and how to reinforce their confidence. We think
Self-confidence,
that self-confidence. So we know that if a woman or any people or any person don't have self-confidence, is very is difficult to go to the next level, even though in the technical entrepreneurship or nothing. So we work very hard in the personal issues, and we complement with the technical. We will teach them as different kind of gastronomy and innovation and entrepreneurship in order to give the youth the tools and for their future. So this is one of the project. The other one that when you invite me to be here, and I was trying to find some project very related to the food system, is one that we are just beginning this week, and is related to the women that work with the bananas value chain. So they are the producers, and they sell their products, the bananas, to one company. What we found is that the company is a very high potential driver in order to push the gender equality. They are this company, this private company, as they are the buyers, they have the power to say all the the associations, I want the woman to have more spaces. I want the women to have more voice. So this project is going to connect the producers, the associations, but the private sector, this private company, who is the buyer, has the power to change the mindset of all these systems. So I wanted just to share these two projects. There are a lot of findings that we are now having, and for sure, maybe later on I can share and on another space. Thank you.
Yes, this week we had a big movement week. We also with Veronica launched a fundraiser for Sabores con Propósito. This campaign that is aiming for both women and men, youth, in the context of social unrest that is going on in Ecuador. And I think in the context of big numbers, going back to this analysis, we're seeing that in Gen Z we have the biggest divide on political stance between gender that we have ever seen in the history of recorded political opinions. So it's definitely key to have both men and women as a part of any kind of initiative in our perspective. So if feminist is leaving no one behind, it's not about just not leaving women behind, but also not leaving some super vulnerable male youth populations in Ecuador. So thank you for sharing that, Veronica. And I wanted to go to Jennifer so we could hear a snapshot of your amazing project. And yes, please, Jennifer.
Well, here in Colombia, specifically in the north coast of the country, that is where I am, we are leading the initiative called Red Matrons. Now it's Red Matrons with X at the final of the name, but at the beginning was Red Matronas. Matrona as like that woman that is an old woman in a community or in a family that is reference of knowledge and care and love in a community. But was the matronas who demands that recognize the role of men. So they say us, hey, we have matrones. Matrones is a masculine term of matronas. So I asked, hey, but what matron means? And say, hey, the society always expect that women make some things where are men that are doing that things with proud. So they cook, they care, they work for us, but at the same time they put their work for the well-being of a family or a community. So matrons will be in a category of recognize what means to the family or to the community. So I think with that we have also started a small revolution that highlights gender roles, even those identities are not that now result problematic for the society. For that reason, we don't call now matronas and matrones, we call matrons with X. And at the same time, we put the finger in issues about the representation of tradition. When we say tradition, we just talk about women's or about work, handwork. But in that tradition, all men too, and another kind of identities of sexual identities too. At the same time, we put the finger in a dynamic of powers and access, and in that way, we feel that we had lead the consolidate gender criteria in the communities to the safeguarding of their food heritage. So Red Matron is a big revolution that is small in a micro area called Atlántico here in Colombia, but we are changing the narrative in the region about traditional producers. So we are really proud of that. We're really proud that now we are not talking just about women, now are just about talking about a community response for their well-being.
Ah, that's fantastic. We ended this conference para ver this year, not when I met you last year, saying, remember, women have to care. Said, no, we all need to care. We're tired of caring for everyone. So I think this is so fantastic what you're saying, to say there's not new masculinities. At the end, it's just embracing feminism or feminist side or feminine roles. Again, I'm laughing, sorry. Please disregard the color of my face. So no, I think what you're bringing up is fantastic, to just open the floor to these roles that have been perpetuated through narratives and through social construct, to just be a women's chore, to actually be all of our chores, right? So that's a really interesting and gorgeous point. Thank you, Jennifer. So now that we have some inspiring case studies, I want to go into the other side of the coin, which are and Ratana touched upon them briefly before. What are the challenges, the barriers to achieving this feminist food system, and how can they be addressed? Freya, don't apologize. That's going to be hard. Maybe next generation healing. My daughter's not going to apologize every 5 minutes. So what are the challenges to achieve this feminist food system where we're all caring, where we all responsible, where we're all holding this holistic view? So maybe Constanza, you were the one to bring up the context and the diversity to the conversation. So I would love to hear your take on this.
Yes, I think it's very interesting because we've been talking a lot about gender. Even when we talk about male and female, we're still like labeling it. So I think one of the main barriers is to label a food system as feminist or not. So I think this gender related label is very complex because I'm a woman, I'm Venezuelan, and I study design. I love tarot, and I am an immigrant now here in Europe. And all of this is part of who I cannot compartmentalize, like when I'm doing each of these things. And I think that's the value of the complexity of each of us. Now we are not only one thing. And living here in Europe now, I think is something that is giving me value, because embracing this complexity, as you said, in the global south, I think we cannot be only one thing to survive. We need to do a lot of things at the same time, and be in different places and behave in different roles in different moments. While when I came here, mostly I found that there are boxes. And when you are in the academia, you behave in this way. And when you are working in astronomy, you behave in this way. And this was very difficult for me. So I think it's the same thing when we talk about the food system. Maybe we don't need to label. Maybe what we need to do is to integrate this diversity of us as persons, but also, as I was mentioning, from this queer perspective, to understand that we don't have the power to make all the decisions, and we need nature, for example, that is so important for the food system to participate. So when we talk about a feminist food system, even if we understand this perspective that is inclusive, that it's about caring, it's about context, it is important to consider the participation of others. And I think that might be the challenge, not to embrace complexity of us and of the system, to be able to propose complex solutions that are again, context related, about care, about like everyone finding their place to grow and to add value to the system, or to the food systems, not maybe not just one, if we understand this complexity. So yes,
I mean, thank God we have you. So the intersectionality part covered. I think this one is very important where we're talking about feminism, that one thing is to stand in one side of the privilege circle, and in another, and gender is just one of maybe 30 of the characteristics that define the level of privilege that you may be having. It is an important one, and I want to acknowledge this, but I think you bring up a very important point. And then also about interspecies participation, especially when we're thinking about a global food system that is intersecting with every single person in this planet once or more than once, hopefully a day. We're talking about not only men and women, but also a plurality of life forms that have to be, well, just as important. I want to create a bit of contrast and tension, and ask Ratana to give us a sum up of what are the barriers, the challenges to transitioning to this feminist food system.
I don't have any tension about bringing participation and complexity into that. I think it's really
then
great
no
point.
tension, that's fine.
No, but let me maybe borrow some of the words of an American politician. And he used to say, if you're not around the table, you take the risk to be on the menu. And I think this is really what we are trying to put here, is that if we don't have that participation, if we don't have that full participation, we are going to lose opportunity to be part of the system and to benefit from the system. And I think this is really radical, this way of thinking of participation as a necessity and not a luxury. And this is really coming into the food rights, women right, human right, the access of food, the utilization of food, the availability of food. All of those are not a luxury. It is not a second choice. It's your first option to be engaged with the food system, to contribute to it, and to benefit from it. I think, again, when we talk about the voice that is around the food system, we have to go beyond just the participation. We have to think about how can we trigger more women leaders? How can we be sure that we just don't have 50% women, 50% men during our conference or our workshop, but we actually creating, nurturing, maturing future leader in that system. And I think this is really asking us to rethink how we engage and what do we see the future role of women as being a part of that food system without adding a new silos into it, but being a kind of a champion of that inclusive mindset. Now, when we're really looking at all of those barriers, and I really said the number one is participation. Under it is what we call
your
like
fiance is ready for marriage.
Great. I did not know that I have a fiance. I'm already married, but that's very good.
Sorry, it happens. It was of course some child was gonna pop up or some whatever, it just happened. Sorry, Ratana. Participation,
No
women leadership. Please continue. It was great.
Exactly. No, but we can deep dive into what is behind participation, right? And I think all of the colleague here and the participants already talk about it. It's the root cause. We're trying to talk about access to land, educations, financial aspects. All of those are still be missing. Until those are not reached, we won't be able to fully participate and fully lead into the food system transformation. And this is extremely urgent. And I'm sorry, I'm going to bring again some of the figure, but a third of the population right now go to bed hungry. There is no food system at global scale that are working for everyone. And because of that, we really need to work together into transforming that food system. And I stop here because otherwise.
No, that's great. The baseline is unacceptable. It's a great takeaway for the point you're bringing in, and it's very important. And for one, I want to thank you all to taking the lead and the time and saying yes to bringing your faith and your voice to actually inspire other women that are thinking about, well, I would love to be a speaker one time, or how can I get to a leadership position in 20 years, or how can I be a a senior policy advisor. Well, you started as junior, you can reach out to these people that are made visible thanks to congresses like this. And I think that's a fantastic point to bring about. Of course, one of the points is, that I prepared is not going to be, we're not going to be able to make it, but I want to bring it back to the conference that is about foresight and futures. So we have some of us that work in this technical space of using foresight methodology, and some of us that are just creating futures and creating theories of change and bringing them into, as Jennifer coined them, small revolutions. So to close this amazing panel, I could talk for hours with you. Of course, I love talking, but this would be the last question that I would love for you all to answer is, what is the role of futures and foresight in transforming the food system? What is the role of imagining alternative futures in transforming the food system? So maybe I'll give it first to Ratna because she's a futurist. And once she has laid out the elements, the other ones we all could have a dab at it.
Okay. Yeah, no, well, and yes, I love foresight. I love future, and you basically why? Because I love hope. If I was to turn my back to the past and the current situation, I think I will stop walking. So future is actually saving a bit of my mindset right now. Why saying that? Because when you do foresight, you think you're reimagining the futures with a S, anything that is plausible. There's one thing that is amazing with the future is that no one owns the future. Everything is about creation. And I think this is really a mindset that usually liberates many stakeholders when you do foresight planning with them, because they all understand that everything that they do today will change the future. We can look at the past, we can look at the trends, we can look at different triggers of transformation, but because we're capable with different set of value to exchange, to reflect together about the future, we are actually capable to elaborate a common vision. And I think this vision doesn't need to be only positive. Most of our work when we do foresight in food system, we acknowledge the trade-off. We acknowledge that people have different interests, and it's totally normal. Some people want to keep the same game over and over because they benefit from that. Some other will like to influence more, but they have as well a land to access. So all of us have different interests at different scale. Now, being able not to change directly the power system, but at least to open a safe space where you can create multiple future, where you can create that connection, I think this is where foresight is necessary for food system transformation. And I think that there is no food system transformation that happens without visioning. There is no change without a long-term goal, especially in food. If you think about food, if you think about future land use, if you think about planting new tree, you don't think about tomorrow, you think about the next 20, 30 years, 50 years from now. And because of that, you have to think long-term. And that's it. Okay.
No, that's fantastic. And if anyone of you is interested, Ratna championed an amazing foresight project in Cambodia and Laos, where she went from policymakers to creating communication tools to decision makers to actually going all the way to community level, smallholder farmers, to communicating and contrasting and understanding how that visioning could be brought to reality. It is a methodology that is absolutely fantastic, built on satellite data, built on qualitative. So really one of the most remarkable works in foresight and food systems that is out there. Well, just a shout out, Ratna. Sorry for that. I hope I don't embarrass you. And bueno, you're so blushing. Well, yeah, continuing, what's the role of futures in transforming the food system? Constanza, I put you on the spot.
Yes, I totally agree with Ratana. I think this is very exciting because you open a time frame where you can imagine anything. And I think if we go back to this participation with nature and understanding other ways of being, we can also get inspired by how mycelium grows, how microorganisms interact in a fermentation, to understand that there are multiple ways of creating systems, interactions, relations that are also complex. And we can translate it or learn from them to imagine futures. And with this space of being to be creative, we can also make the decisions based on those futures that we can imagine. We can make better decisions today, or decisions that actually lead us to a future that we really desire. So, or that we believe, hopefully, when we are thinking about them, that are going to be better for us. So I think it's also interesting because you can also make decisions today informed and more coherent with what you really want, even if it seems too difficult today to change everything, but you can always move a little bit the system towards a better future.
Well, Constanza, you're helping me check the boxes. So now we're talking about the agency that futures create, and that's amazing point to bring up. Jennifer, please, your take.
Well, we have to imagine it. The first thing that we have to do is imagine a possible real transformation. And maybe these are our tools that motivate us to commit now in the present with all this transformation that we really need to make the system sustainable, the systems for us where everyone counts, and the system where no hungry at all for anybody. So I think that this is a tool for motivate us, a tool for commit us with present, with a real transformation. Maybe with a gender criteria, but maybe with a criteria more global about the real well-being for everyone, the real inclusive food for everyone, the real cultural recognition for everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bueno, Verónica, you have the duty of closing the panel.
Oh, thank you. I'm really very inspired listening to all of you, and I really want to imagine, and I think that we have the responsibility not only to imagine, we have the responsibility to act, and that is if we imagine like an inclusive food system, we have to consider for me like three issues. One is we have to co-create with all the actors. I imagine a big table, maybe first in our realities with all, with the women, with agriculture, with the private sector, with the public sector, thinking and rethinking our world. I mean, we are facing like a disaster right now in terms of environmental, but also in terms of social. So we have to rethink our future. But with the participation of all actors. We cannot create only with the women, we cannot create only with the public sector, but we have like different realities, like a parallel realities and parallel voices. So we have to find a bridge between different words. The second is that probably when we are near, or we can make a decision in order to have a public policy, or to advocacy to the public sectors. We think, or I think that is not only to give a rules that obligate to the others to accomplish. We have to really find a way to change the mindset. How we can really change the mindset of the people, not only for obligation, but really for to have a more conscience. And the third one is finally I'm sure that nobody of us like what I'm going to say, but finally, all is about, or not all, but most important is about resources, final resources. So corporates, maybe institutions, final institutions, World Bank or banks are giving a financial, financial budgets to some priorities. And we know that now climate change is a priority, environmental is a priority, gender is a priority, but how we can change this priority in order to really invest in what is really needed. I mean, there are some, I would say, collaboration, there are, but where is the invest going? So we need to find a way to go to these investors and really put on the table the necessity of to rethink and to co-create.
No, we don't hate resources. We love resources, Veronica. So, no, totally agree. I think there is a common resource, and the food is a way of getting to resources in all our countries. When families cannot make ends meet, they make some tamales or they make some cake, whatever, and they go out and sell it. So food is a way of activating resources immediately. But also, it is true that we need to engage the private sector towards this food system transformation. If we believe in the free market, the same companies are going to continue dominating the narrative. So at the end of the day, we do need advocacy, and we need to redirect some of these investment fluxes into creating this transformation. And I am a firm believer of this, but regrettably, there is no more debate. We're almost done. So I'm gonna close a little bit and then open the floor for questions. So thank you very much to all of you, the panelists, and of course the participants. We believe transforming our food systems to be sustainable and just is the task at hand for all practitioners, from agriculture to food service and everything in between, which is education, the financial sector, the environment, the healthcare system. Well, if you ask us food people, we believe food is the backbone of the world. And well, you're not gonna change my mind today. So yeah, we need to change it. So before we open the floor to questions, I would like to share a perspective and an invitation. We've been able to dissect participation, and futures have a huge role to play in creating transformations. So for over 7 years now, we've been approaching foresight methodologies to stakeholders in the food system in the context of policy making, planning, creating programs that tackle the question of empowerment and empowerment through food. Our findings have been that food is an exceptionally effective entry point to establish dialogue, connection, to engage about the future. But sorry, this is the one that other people may not like in the room. We have found that foresight methodologies themselves and the way they're applied demand a huge learning curve from practitioners, from people in the field, from chefs to factory operators to farmers. And these methodologies actually, in our experience, have created entry barriers and rejection. So in order to overcome this barrier at Mycelium, we have devised a multi-award-winning methodology that we have coined Transform. Transform leverages the power of shared food preparation to foster connections and conversation. People gather around the table, engaging in tasks like cutting and peeling, creating a familiar and intimate space. It's designed for diverse food system stakeholders to facilitate horizontal discussions on our collective legacy and future opportunities. It prompts the exploration of how individual actions can contribute to collective goals. So if you're a practitioner in the community engagement space, especially in food system transformation, and are looking for new methodologies, I would love for you to get in touch and find ways to make this tool available for you. I'll put my email in the chat box soon. We can also provide local assistance with over 100 network nodes distributed globally in the US, Latin America, South Europe, and Southeast Asia. It would allow food practitioners to incorporate the tool and use it confidently in their practice. The ultimate goal is to provide change makers in the food space with a tool and a support system to accelerate collaboration pathways, to create participation by creating a safe space that allows the emergence of collective intelligence and better decision making. But don't take my word for it. You can check it out. I'm gonna share a small video with you. Yep. Sorry, my technology skills are okay. So these are politicians and farmers all mixed together in Navarra, setting the cornerstone of the next 20 years of policymaking for food tourism. We were taking notes, as you can see Constanza there, but we were mostly cooking and eating. Well, I think we have reached the end of our feminist food system panel. Would love for you, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or drop the question in the chat box. Yeah, I'll also put my email there in case you want to reach out. Please do. Would love to hear from you. Anyone has a question, something this conversation has sparked, would love to say something. Don't be shy. Well, no. I thought someone was raising their hands, but no. Okay, too many shy people, 30 shy people in the room. It's okay. Thank you so much then, Dr. Ratna, Veronica, Constanza, Jennifer, for sharing your perspectives about the needed change in the food system, how gender perspective could be a leverage, but how participation and an intersectional approach, we believe, is really the way forward into creating a change that is not just desirable, but very much needed. Bueno, that's it. It wasn't that hard, huh?
It was amazing. Thank you so much, Estefania, everyone. It was fantastic. Very good to see so many different perspectives and really enriching the conversation. That's very good. Thank you very much. Well, our next session is in almost 30 minutes, and this is going to be a session in Spanish titled Mujeres liderando los futuros de América Latina, Women leading the future in Latin America. You're very welcome to take a break now, and we're going to be here in less than 30 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Muchas gracias. Un gusto conocerlas.
Gracias.
Thank you.